Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is our last panel. I don't have very good news for you. It will last 2 hours. Only my introduction is 132 pages. So be patient, please. We will finish around 9:15, okay? Good, you all agree. Thank you. We have a great discussion. This is about the Middle East as a partner, beyond crisis, towards shared interests. We said many times that the Middle East is framed through crisis rather than contribution. So how can we all consider or reconsider the Middle East as an economic and business partner? Today, the Middle East sits at the crossroads of some of the most important transformations. It remains central to global energy security. It is emerging as a critical hub for trade corridors, and its sovereign wealth funds are reshaping investment flows all over the world. So the question is whether not how we can engage with the Middle East, but how. And this is the topic of our discussion today. We have 4 great speakers here. Our Minister of International Economic Relations, Mr. Haris Theoharis. We have Mr. Hughes Hilderman, the Middle East and North Africa Director for 10 years at the International Crisis Group in Brussels, a very prominent organization. We have Zwan Sabir, who is actually the head of Tourism Board, the Minister of Tourism, am I right? And he's also Chief of Staff of the Deputy Prime Minister here at the Kurdish Regional Government. And Greg Mills, a man of the world. I don't know whether he is 1 week, where is he the other week, or whatever. He travels all over, from Africa to Europe to the United States, etc. So I would like to start with a question which goes primarily to our speakers. I mean, the Minister and Mr. Hilderman, how can Europe, Minister Greece perhaps, can build genuine long-term strategic partnerships based on trade, energy, and connectivity?
Well, I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank you. Thank you not just for the invitation to speak in this very, very important conference, but mainly for your vision to actually create this point of dialogue at a city of culture, at a city where really this dialogue is very, very much needed, given that this dialogue is needed in the Middle East, not just here, but I think everywhere. I think you're right. And we, of course, first of all, we have to understand and set the scene. The scene is that we're moving away from a world of international law towards a more transactional order. This is not going to be forever. This is happening, however, during these few years, until a new security agreement and infrastructure is put in place. And then, of course, we will move to a next phase. During these times of turbulence, ensuring that the relationships are real, the relationships are built on trust, the relationships continue to function despite the difficulties, becomes a critical security consideration, not just an economic consideration. So really, having the openness, the connectivity, making the choices and sticking to your agreements, despite the world that is changing, is really of paramount importance. At the same time, things that normally fall under the economic purview, the energy axis, water scarcity, issues of dual use, things that normally we used to let the business people decide who to deal with. Now they're being viewed through the security lens. The security lens is the basic lens through which we have to reevaluate everything. If you are a country of the Gulf being affected by this war that's unfolding in front of our eyes, let's just say, for the sake of argument, UAE, are you not going to reevaluate your supply chains, where you're getting the stuff that you depend upon, and whether those supply chains come through allies, through people that you can trust? So as I said, trust is becoming paramount. I think Greece and Europe and the Middle East have to play a very, very important role. We have to show that there is a different paradigm, not a paradigm of aggression or competition, but a paradigm of cooperation. Europe perhaps is not doing, moving fast in this respect, but certainly Greece, capitalizing on the historical ties with the region. We have long-standing cultural, people-to-people, and I think value and viewpoint ties with the region. The Kurds, Iraq, Greece, even Iran are great civilizations, long-term civilizations. We have a long-term view of history and of reality, and I think we can capitalize it. And what we need to do now is to look at specific sectors, specific projects, specific infrastructure and connectivity mainly, and security-related projects that we can do together. The more we do together, the more important our region becomes, and the more resilient our region becomes. Let me close with this. If you want to bypass, let's say, with oil, if you want to bypass the Straits, both Hormuz and the Red Sea, you need to somehow connect the Kurdistan region to the Mediterranean. And you have to cooperate with Syria, you have to cooperate with perhaps Jordan, Turkey, and the other countries in the region to be able to do that and to bypass this thing. So as I said...
Thank you, Minister. Thank you very much. Mr. Hilderman, would you like to comment a little bit about the situation, Europe and Middle East?
Sure. Thank you so much, and thank you for the...
Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for organizing me.
Absolutely.
It's my pleasure. And it's great to be back in Slemani. I come frequently, but not frequently enough. And I really appreciate your comments as well. I totally embrace them. I work for a conflict prevention organization. We're not very good at preventing conflict, you've seen it. But in any case, it is our business to understand what drives conflict. And there are many things that can be done in common between Europe and various actors, countries, regions in the Middle East, and of course also within the region itself. And there are many positive examples of good cooperation in the past, but everything is being subverted in a way by the conflicts that are not only multiplying but also growing. And becoming more intense in a way because of the involvement of the United States in particular in the war in Iran at the moment. But it's what we've seen really come after October 2023 with Israel being involved in fighting in, they were involved in, I think it was, a number of countries and regions in the past couple of years. The cooperation is critical when it comes to the impact of climate change. It's very obvious. We have the water situation, you mentioned it already. I think it's not a benefit to speak at the end of the day because many things have been said. I want to repeat what some others have said, Volker Perthes in particular, about one of the main deficits of the region is the absence of good governance. It is the major fact that prevents the region from moving forward. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly very possible to cooperate on this, but all of these issues are put on the back burner because of the need to draw the resources toward defending yourself in these times of armed conflict. So again, as a conflict prevention organization, we're looking for ways of reducing the drivers to come to ceasefires, but also to translate these ceasefires into longer-term peace accords.
I know you are coming from a different road, but I would like to ask whether perhaps you're the minister, know anything about the India, Middle East, European corridor, which unfortunately was not mentioned today, which is a major, major project, which is, if materializes, it will change the entire, region. Do you think that this has some future in view of the conflicts that we see these days?
Yeah. I think the answer is complicated. There's a yes part and there's a no part. The no part is the way the corridor, you can see this, by the way, by the choice of the word corridor in its name, was envisioned, was really a single route of connectivity from India all the way to Europe. Now this is very, very vulnerable as a concept. We've seen this with the Straits of Hormuz and stuff, so it will not survive as a concept that it started with. But if we replace the corridor with a network of options, of connections, when I mentioned oil pipes, I mentioned both Syria and Jordan and Turkey, so all the options, if you put all the options there, if from Suez you connect to Greece, but also to Italy and perhaps to France, if there are many choices, then yes, this will survive. And I would say the impetus, the imperative for, and the need for IMEC is actually much more important
Joost,
now.
would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, just to build on that, because it is all about who is included and who is excluded. So when we look at the Abraham Accords, for example, between the Emirates and Israel, the IMEC, the corridor, was very much in play. But the Abraham Accords were also premised on the notion that there wouldn't be a Palestinian state. But that makes it very difficult to implement actually a project of that size, because there's going to be opposition from various countries and actors, including Iran, that see that this is not going to work. So if you're going to resolve a conflict or build an economic project, you have to do it inclusively. And I think that is key. So also, if you want to build a corridor, first of all, you need to diversify the routes, very importantly. And secondly, you may need to start thinking, and I think it was Minister Davutoglu who mentioned it also, the need for a security architecture in the Gulf, or at least some kind of collective mechanism where you can have dialogue that includes Iran and the Gulf, the 6 GCC members, and Iraq, of course, including Kurdistan, as a starting point for building these kinds of projects that then could actually work.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask the same question to Greg, but please keep your horses, Greg. I will go first to the lady, because she's the head of tourism. We all speak here about petroleum, about gas, about energy. Can you tell us a little bit about the situation of tourism and what are the plans, the government in order to attract more tourists, to develop the sector, etc. Please.
زۆر سپاسان ئەەکەم بۆ پرسیارەکە و لە هەرێمی کوردستان و بە تایبەتیش لە سلێمانی پرۆژەی زۆر جوان و هەمەچەشن بنیادیراوە بۆ جۆرا و جۆرکردنی سەرچاوەکانی ئابووری لە ناوێشیانە پرۆژە گەشتیاریەکان لەم ساڵانەی داهاتووە بڕیاری ئەوە دراوە بڵین کە پرۆژەکانی ئەوانەی کە تایبەتە بە گەشتیاری زیاتر بکرێت و بۆ ئەوەی بتوانین بە شێوازێکی تایبەت جێگرەوە بێ بۆ ئەو سەرچاوە داراییانەی سەرچاوە ئابووریانەی کە لە ڕابردوودا ئێمە پەیوەست بووین بەوەی کە سەرچاوەی داهات و ئابووری ئێمە زیاتر لە نەوتەوە و گازەوە بێت بەڵام ئێستا خۆشبەختانە ئێمە پرۆژەکانمان لە ڕێگەی وەبەرهێنانەوە لە ڕێگەی دۆستەکانمان لە دەرەوەی وڵات و لە ناوچەکانی خۆمانە برەو پێن لە ڕێگەی وەبەرهێنان لە گەشتیاری لە کشت و کاڵ لە هەمەچەشنکردنی جۆرەکانی ئابووری پلانی جۆرا و جۆرمانداناوە بۆ ئەم چەند ساڵەی داهاتوو کە بتوانین زۆرترین گەشتیار زۆرترین هانی گەنج بین بۆەوەی کە بێن لە سنوورەکانی ئێمە کە هەرێمی کوردستانە کە ئێمە 4 فەسڵێکی جوانمان هەیە کە ئەتوانین نزیکەی 3 فەسڵی تەواومان گەشتیاران ڕاکێشین بۆ هەرێمی کوردستان و بتوانین لە ڕێگەیەوە ئابووریەکی زیاتر بۆ ناوچەکەمان دەستەبەر بکەین و هەروەها لە جنوبەوە کە خۆشبەختانە لەگەڵ کۆمپانیا گەشتیارەکانە بە بەردەوامی کۆنتراکتەکەین بۆ ئەوەی زیاتر گەشتیارەکانی دەور و پشتمان و ناوچەکانی خوار و ناوەڕاستیش بێنین بۆ ناوچە گەشتیاریەکان لەبەرەوەی هەرێمی کوردستان خۆتان ئاگدارن کە هەرێمێکی تا ڕادەیەکی زۆر ئاشتی و ئەمنیتیە بەرقەرارە و ئەتوانین ئێمە هانی گەشتیاران و وەبەرهێناری هەم بیانی و هەم ناوچەکان و دەور و پشتیشمان لە ئێران و لە سووریا و لە تورکیا و لە جنوبی عراقیشەوە کە هاندانێکی باشە بێ بۆ ئەوەی کە بتوانین لە داهاتووە و ئێستش کە بەردەوامین ئەو سەرچاوە ئابووریەمان زیاتر پەرە پێ بین.
Sorry for being ignorant. Do you have a special agency which promotes, investments in this field here in Kurdistan?
ئێمە وەکوەزانن دەستەی بڵێن گەشت و گوزارمان هەیە لە هەرێمی کوردستانە کە ئەمە سەر بە وەزارەتی شارەوانی و گەشت و گوزارە بەڵام پلانی تۆکمەمان هەیە کە بەردەوام لە کۆنتاکتین لەگەڵ گروپە گەشتیاریەکانە بۆ ئەوەی هانیان بدەین کە بە بەردەوامی بێت و هەروەها دەستەی وەبەرهێنانیشمان هەیە کە هانی وەبەرهێنەکانمان ئەیە کە ئەوانیش زیاتر وەبەرهێنان لە کەرتی گەشتیاریا بکەن.
We will be more than happy to work together because Greece, as you know, is a little bit developed as far as tourism is concerned. So we need to invite you to our country so you come and see how we can. Actually, the minister was Minister of Tourism before. So actually he can give us a little thoughts about how this region can develop.
ئێمە خۆشحاڵە بین کە هەماهەنگیەک هەبێت لە نێوان ئێمە وەکو هەرێمی کوردستان و هەر وڵاتی یۆنانیش کە تەبیعەتی ئاوهەواکەی زۆر نزیکە لە هەرێمی کوردستانەوە بە خۆشحاڵیەوە پێشوازیەکەین لە هەر پرۆژەیەک کە بێت و ئێمە لە تواناماندا بەیەکەوە ئەنجامی بدەین.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greg, you are also a member of RUSI, a board member, which is one of the most important think tanks in Europe, actually, not only in London. Tell me how you view things, because you travel a lot around the world, how you view things about the Middle East, about, doing business here, and also I would like to have your comments about the IMEC, which is, I think, an important project.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Simeon. I will speak less about a view out of London, because I don't spend that much time there, than a view out of South Africa and a view out of the African continent where I spend most of my time working and living. And as you can hear, and as you can probably see, I am a South African and I used to play rugby. And I like to point that out to all the British people in the audience, because it's a point of great advantage for us. I think there's 3 or 4 basic areas where Africa, as your virtual next-door neighbor in Kurdistan, can collaborate. And I want to spend less time on talking about those areas and more talking about the how, because that's the question you posed to us right at the very beginning. And the first of these is obviously energy and electricity. 40 of 48 sub-Saharan African countries are net fuel importers. About 45% of Africans don't have access to electricity, just over 650 million people. Of the total of 730 million people in the world who don't have access to electricity, we have lots of critical minerals. And if you want to have a cell phone today, which has 70 of them in it, or if you want to pretty much do anything around data and AI or have an electric car, you need access to that. And then perhaps most importantly, we're a market of 1.5 billion people, the average age of which is around between 19 and a half and 20 years old. And we're going to be 2.5 billion people by the year 2050. And 2/3 of those people are going to be young and reaching the prime of their energy levels. So big opportunities. The question is, how do you get them to intersect? And there's several ways here. I think the first one is that we have a very similar outlook. It's said about Europe and about the United States that you do business and you make friends. In Africa, and I suspect it's the same in Kurdistan, you make friends and then you do business. It's the other way around. We have a completely inverted value system, one personally that I appreciate a great deal more.
So I think and the one theme that's run through all the talks today has been the importance of relationships. Relationships is what brought me here, and I suspect relationships are going to be what brings me back here. I think the second big issue is that we, particularly in Africa, have a very low starting base. We have an average per capita income of just over $1,600. There's a very long path upwards, but compared to the global average of $11,500, we've got a long way to travel. So there's quite a lot of value to add for relatively minimal outlay. I think the third, and I've only got 4 areas, is of reform. And as I mentioned in this last session in which I participated, the problem in Africa is not too much globalization, it's too little globalization. The problem in Africa is not too much state, it's the wrong type of state. The state is predatory. It reminds me of Confucius' words about reform of the salt sector in China when he said, you can't have a state that competes with the people. And that's what we have. We have a state, mostly in Africa, that competes with the people. It's an adversary of people's interests. And I think there's a certain intersection, not necessarily with Kurdistan, but with big areas of the Middle East which draw certain commonality. And I can't but use the opportunity with Peter Galbraith in the audience to talk a little bit about peace, because we know a little bit about peace. We also know a great deal about war. And I did 4 assignments with ISAF in Afghanistan, and Fink Haysom, my countryman, and I used to argue about this all the time. But essentially you need 3 components for peace. You need the outside world to be pushing the parties uniformly to the negotiating table. You can't do it if one side is being pushed harder than the other, or one side's not being pushed at all. Secondly, you need all the parties to see that there's more advantage in ending fighting than continuing with it. And I don't believe we're there in virtually any area in the Middle East, and we're not there in many areas of Africa. We were there in South Africa in 1990, but we were there in South Africa in 1990 because of the third component, and that's the wisdom factor. You need to have leadership, method, and timing, but you need leadership. And so all of these things, whether it's peace, whether it's realizing economic opportunity, whether it be seeking advantage or building relationships, or building regional understandings, Red Sea forums, Red Sea dialogues, for instance, all of which make complete sense. Unless you have a leadership that sees the alternative to the way in which things are happening and sees the opportunity, I'm afraid it's going to be business as usual.
Thank you very much, Greg. Mind you, we're going to be for the first time in South Africa in December to organize a Delphi forum, and allow me a small advertisement, because we do annual events in Washington, in Brussels, in Toronto, in Paris, in Berlin, in Bucharest, in Sofia, and in Tirana. We go in December, and perhaps we can bring a few of our people here so that they can, because you have a very affluent community, am I right, in South Africa, which can match somehow with some, business projects. I'm a little more practical person rather than a theoretician, so I would love that we take few people from here to our event in December. And also, you bring perhaps a couple of important business leaders, from Africa to examine the possibilities here. So we're coming very close to the end, but I would like to ask a very plain question. Next year, 12 months from now, we're going to be here again to discuss the same. What we can do in order to help this country, Kurdistan, in order to be more visible, to the international markets, to foreign investors, no matter whether this is Europe, is China, is it the United States, whatever. Can you give us a little of your thoughts about this?
Let me just bring to the table our experience. Greece went through a very difficult financial crisis. It was visible, but it was visible for the wrong reasons. Everybody wanted to avoid us. About 10, 12, 15 years ago, everybody was talking in the morning news about Greece's problems, not about what a good country of investment opportunity it is. Fast forward to today, this has changed. We're an example of a country that has managed to do reforms. We are overperforming in the fiscal space, in investment, in FDI, in growth, and so on and so forth. So how did we do that vis-a-vis the question you asked? We created some projects. Pfizer, for example, came in Thessaloniki, put 150 people initially, researchers and staff, to provide services for the rest of the company. Now these 1,500 people are 2,000 3 years later or 4 years later, and they are our biggest seller, marketing arm to other investors in the US and especially in the pharmaceutical sector. So basically what we need to do is form specific projects, talk to Cubat and the other officials of the Kurdish government, agree on a few projects, bring the companies here, do joint investments or whatever is needed, infrastructure project or whatever, and then those businessmen will be here and in other fora saying what a good experience they had with Kurdistan, and they'll be the ones attracting the next wave of investors.
Absolutely. Just
It's coming? Yeah.
yes,
Yeah?
it's coming.
Okay.
Yes, great.
So I think three things are needed in the Kurdistan region if investment is to increase over time and the region is going to flourish even more than it has. I've been coming since 1991. Peter Galbraith was there even before. We've both seen how it has become flourishing in many ways, but it has a long way to go. The three things are rooting out corruption, which in Kurdistan region is from the top down. That has to be addressed. It cannot continue as it has been going. The second one is to open political space, to have more political participation. We see more of it in Slemani than in other parts of the region, but even here it's problematic, where the parties still control the institutions and pretty much appointments and the way the educational institutions work, for example. And thirdly, the political parties themselves have to learn to talk to each other and resolve their deep differences. The parties don't have to agree with each other. They can have their own political programs, but not even being able to talk to each other. We heard it this morning from Mr. Bavel Talabani. I heard it yesterday in Erbil as well, from the other side. That doesn't work. You have to be able to form a government. If you are not unified, the outside world is not going to be interested in investing because the situation is simply not stable enough.
Thank you. Madam Sabir, would you like to comment a little bit about how we can increase the investments here of foreign companies?
داوە لە کۆمپانیا بنیانەکانەکەین ئەوانەی کە ئەیانەوێ لە کوردستان وەبەرهێنان بکەن پیان ئەڵێن کە ئێمە ئامادەین هەموو ئاسانکاریەکە بۆ بکەین بۆ ئەوەی وەبەرهێنان بکەن لە هەموو ئەو بوارانەی کە پێویستە بۆ کوردستان بە تایبەتی بوارە گەشتیاریەکان بوارە کشت و کاڵیەکان بواری بینا و ئەو بوارانەی تری کە ئەتوانن کارگەکانیان بگەنە ئێرە چەندین پرۆژەمان هەیە کە ئەتوانن لەم کوردستانی ئێمەیە کە ئێمە خاوەنی جگە لە نەوت چەند کازایەکی تریشمان هەیە هەر خاوەنی نەوت نین بەڵکو ئێمە خاوەنی ئاسنین ئاسنێکی باشەیە لە کوردستان و لە مەنتیقەی سلێمانی خاوەنی چەندین کارگەی چیمەنتۆین کە چیمەنتۆیەکی باشمانەیە هانیانەیەن کە ئەوانیش بێن پارەکانی خۆیان عەقڵی خۆیان لەگەڵ عەقڵی ئێمەیە تێکەڵاو بکەین بۆ ئەوەی هەرێمی کوردستان و ئێمە ئیستیفادە بکەین و هەم ئەوانیش ئیستیفادە بکەین بە تایبەتی تێکەڵیەک دروستکەین وەکو پرۆژەی گەشت و کاڵ ئەگرۆتۆریزم کە ئێمە لە بیدایەتی دروستکردنی ئەو پرۆژانەیەن کە ئەوەش ئیشێکی باشە بێ بۆ کوردستان.
Thank you very much. Greg, you have the last word, my dear.
Yeah, there's nothing I'll disagree with in terms of reform agenda, but the great thing about Donald Trump and Brexit and actually looking over the European landscape generally is that everybody has problems. Your problems, in fact, just about on our TV screen for an unacceptable number of minutes every day, particularly with the United States. But it depends on whether you want to see the country through which prism. I mean, Africa is not just a problem to be solved. It's also a business opportunity to be entertained. And the same way is true for Iraq, the same way is true for Kurdistan. And I do think that problems elsewhere in the world, whether they be strategic problems like aging populations or declining empires or whatever the case may be, these are profound and strategic and long-term. So I would just end with a positive note, which is I was in the lift yesterday helping somebody get down to the lower lobby floor or something in the unintelligible lift system in the grand, otherwise very nice Grand Millennium Hotel. And I asked him where he was from. He asked me where I was from. I said, Cape Town. He said, been many times. And I said, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Iran. Somewhat hesitantly. He's probably in the audience, but somewhat hesitantly. And then we had a chat. He'd been there many times to do business. And I think the great selling feature of Kurdistan is that Kurdistan is a crossroads. It's a crossroads between Africa and the Middle East, through the Middle East, into Europe, across, in many ways, across North Africa. And it should market that. It should develop that image as this crossroads. Yes, there are internal tensions, but it's the same challenge in some ways, not only of perception, but it is a big perception challenge for countries that have been in conflict for a long period of time to reimagine themselves and get others to reimagine them as opportunities rather than problems.
So you say how quickly 2 hours pass. What a great panel. Please give them a hand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. After 6 hours of fruitful and stimulating discussions and presentations, we thank you very much for your patience. We are looking forward to have you all tomorrow morning. We open around 8:30 and we have a great presentation tomorrow by Mr. Kubat Talabani at 9:30 sharp. Thank you all.